This is the table of content that we are going to review today. To start, we are going to take a look at the screen reader function, moving to visibility enhancements after, and we are going to finalize the presentation with interaction and dexterity features. Throughout the presentation, we are going to do live demonstrations so you have an idea where to go to set up some of these functions. Around 12 million Americans aged 40 years and up have some form of vision loss today. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 4.2 million of those have uncorrectable vision impairment, out of which 1 million approximately are blind, and this is a number that the CDC expects to double by the year 2050, and all due to the reason of the rise in health conditions such as diabetes and other chronic problems. For mobile device users whose operating system is Android, there are several customization options, particularly when it comes to low vision accessibility settings. Custom home screen launchers, larger font options, and different Google accessibility apps to make devices easier are some options low vision users can set up to make their devices better and adapted to their particular needs. We will look at the most used low vision accessibility settings for Android and how to enable them. All right, for today, I will be using an Android device from Samsung, and I'm going to start by going to my settings application. And in my settings application, I'm going to use the search function to locate one of the features that I want to enable. This is something also that you can do if you don't know where one feature is exactly. You can use the magnifying glass, tap over that function, and you can look by the name of that function when you don't know in what menu that function is. That being said, what I'm going to look at today is the option of my accessibility button. Soon as I start typing in, what is going to happen is that my device is going to present the options related with whatever I type in the top. And what I'm looking to start with is my accessibility button, in which case, based on my results, is the second option from my list. And I will tap over that option, and then it will take me to where it is exactly. Once I have come to the menu where my accessibility button is, in which case is accessibility shortcuts, I can go then to accessibility button. When I am in the accessibility button, what follows is picking the select actions that I want to have in that button. And I can go to select actions, and I'm going to select the option accessibility. You can pick any of the other functions, and then you will have all of them compiled under that button. But to make it easy, just select accessibility, and you notice that soon as you select the option accessibility at the bottom right corner of your screen, then that button is going to show up, in which case you then will be able to access everything related with accessibility, adaptability functions from that point. So I'm going to use the back button, and now I can either decide if I want to leave that accessibility button in the navigation bar, or I want that floating over other applications. When I select the option floating over other applications, you will notice that the button will show up much more bigger on the screen, and you can decide what size do you want that button to have, whether it's small, in which case it will change accordingly, medium, or large. Also, you can decide if that button will fade when not in use. You will notice certain transparency in the button when you are not actively touching it. Otherwise, when it's active, you will see the colors much more bright. You can leave it as it is right now. I have it enabled, but I can disable, right? If I disable, it's gonna be in bright colors at all times as opposed to faded when it's not being used. In this fading option, you have the ability to decide how transparent you want the button to be when it's not being used. And if you move more towards the right, that button is gonna be very much hidden in the background. But if you move towards the left, it's gonna be much more into life, to call it some way. So the idea of transparency is that you can see it somehow there. That is in the case that you want to leave it floating over apps. I personally prefer in the navigation bar because I have it there and it's not interfering as much with other things I could be doing. And since I use a touch screen, right, sometimes you want to touch add one function, but other function keeps opening. And this could happen if that button is floating over other apps because you will have it somehow in the middle. So I'm gonna leave my accessibility button here in the navigation bar, and I'm going to move then to the other functions. The first function that we are going to take a look at is the screen reader function. And screen readers allow users to navigate their device using a keyboard or a series of gestures and are typically always on. On Android, the screen reader feature is commonly called TalkBack. The TalkBack Android screen reader can be found using the device system settings. For that, you will have to go to the accessibility menu, which is the one we just happened to create a shortcut a few minutes ago. Then you will check the check box to turn on TalkBack in the case that the function is not on already. Here are some of the TalkBack settings and what they do. To start, we have a speech volume. TalkBack will essentially speak at the same volume level as music, videos, and such. The second option is keyboard echo, and in this case, users can select whether to hear keyboard characters spoken as they are entered into the application or not. Following with talkback settings and what they do, we have use pitch changes. This speaks keyboard feedback in a lower pitch voice, and it's for the sake of you not being overwhelmed by the function. The fourth function out of this list is speak when a screen is off. As various notifications appear on the screen, the device may become a bit verbose, meaning it could essentially tell you by voice everything that is going on, even when the screen is turned off. You can reduce how this happens if it becomes a little bit too much. Also, we have use proximity sensor. When enabled, you can wave a hand near your device top left corner, and this will silence a speech automatically. Tablets do not always include proximity sensors. Have that in mind in case you use one. Shake to start continuous reading. This is a quick way to have a screen spoken out loud. And to finalize this menu, speak caller ID. Some people will prefer to know who is calling by voice. Others simply will prefer to keep this information private. So within this option, when somebody calls you, the device will tell you the name of the person as well as the number. Or if you prefer to keep that in private because you could be with other people in the same room or space, you can also decide not to enable that function. Now we are going to show you the talkback function on the Android. We already enabled the accessibility button. We are going to navigate the talkback function from that button. So what I will do then is tap in that function right here at the bottom right corner. So when I tap over that function, it's gonna show me all the different changes I can perform in my device to make it more accessible. So the option we just went over is talk back. So when you come to talk back, you have a switch kind of thing that you can either enable or disable by tapping over. As well, you have something is called a talkback shortcut, and at the bottom you have much more information as to how the talkback option works. When talkback is on, it provides spoken feedback so that you can use your device without looking at the screen. Talkback is intended for situations or people who have difficulties seeing the screen. And at the bottom, you have a bit more as to how to use the function. You can swipe right or left to move between items. You can double tap to activate an item and drag two fingers to scroll. How to turn off talkback. If that is too much for you, you can use the volume keys, press and hold both volume keys for a second. You can also go to settings, tap the use talkback switch. You will see a green outline. Double tap the switch. On the confirmation message, tap stop and then double tap stop. And that is how you deactivate that. But let's try it out. If I were to tap here, what it says off at the very moment, and I tap in that toggle bar, then it's gonna ask full control of your phone or your tablet or your Android device. You then will have to select allow. When you select allow, then if there is any situations with your language settings, it will prompt you to correct that at that moment, in which case you can go to your settings and you can make the language the same for text to speech as well as to talk back. Here I just use the play button to have a reference as to how that is going to sound when I use talk back. This is an example of speech synthesis. Okay, now that that is taken care of, I can go back to the talk back menu. I can allow talkback on. Permission request. Enable accessibility service. This to have talkback turned on. To get not checked, don't show this message again. Checkbox. What happened is that my device start talking menus, descriptions. Soon as I start using this function, then I will tap enable, double tap. Enable button. Accessibility. Navigate button. Double tap to activate.
Double tap and hold to long press.
And as you can see, whenever I select an option and I'm navigating through my device screen, TalkBack will tell me exactly where I am and how to operate that menu.
Visibility enhancements 4 of 15. Double tap to activate.
So also notice how whenever I'm in an option, it will tell me how many changes or tools I can find in that option. I'm going to double tap.
Back. Navigate up. Button out of list. Double tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press.
And now that I'm back here, I can either keep it on or disable, in which case I'm going to tap in the option and I'm going to double tap. And that is how you enable and disable. Essentially, it speaks whatever you are doing on the screen. The second set of options that we have here is visibility enhancements. Enhancements are available for users with low vision or anyone wanting to customize the content on their electronic device using an operating system from Android. You can also choose your preferred fonts and colors so the screen is easier to read. So here we have more about customizing the display on Android devices with visibility enhancements. From the settings option, in case you have not set up the accessibility function as a shortcut, as I did at the beginning of the presentation, you locate accessibility, you can then tap in the option visibility enhancements. This menu could change based on your device brand. However, some of the functions within this visibility enhancement option could be general despite the device brand. Swipe up to see all the convenient options for improving how things look on your screen. Options to customize from that visibility enhancement menu. We have display mode. This can go from default, high contrast, and large display. High contrast fonts, you can tap to add an outline to all fonts so that they stand out against the screen or background. Highlight buttons. This will add a highlighted color to buttons so they are easier to see and select. And the last two, remove animations. This is an option that you can enable if you want to negate the screen effects from applications. And finally, transparency and blur. So these reduce visual effects so menus and dialogues are easier to see and you are not too confused when exploring them. We also have magnify or zoom. Even after customizing your display, there might be times when you want to magnify something on the screen. Thankfully, there are built-in options within your Android device to do just that. From the Accessibility and Visibility Enhancement menu, explore various options to make your screen easier to navigate. And here we have some of them. Magnification. This feature can allow you to choose between triple tapping or using the accessibility shortcut to magnify the screen. You also have pointer size and color. You can select a size and color for the screen's pointer, and font size and style. Users can change the font size and even bold it if they like, so the letter and formats are much more clear. Going back to the accessibility menu, So I'm going to tap on it. And we were in talkback before. Now we are going to visibility enhancements. And I'm going to tap over that option. And here, the first thing that I have is display mode. In display mode, you can decide if you want the letter to be the default one, in which case, whenever you select an option, you will have to apply, and that will change accordingly. You also have high contrast, and remember, you have to hit apply, and when you hit apply, notice how the letters and also the main titles kind of have shading or stand out. You also have large display, in which case you will be able to see the letter larger and also the menus standing out. So that is how you can make the screen in terms of formatting a bit better to read. I'm going to use this color inversion so that you have an idea how that balance of coloring is changed, whether you prefer a darker screen or a whiter screen. You can use this option so the device invert the colors such as the title says. So I'm gonna keep scrolling down. I'm going then to size and zoom. So magnification, what it does is that magnify the full screen or use the magnify window. So it has a toggle bar right here. And when you enable, you should tap the accessibility button to start or stop this function at the bottom of the screen, and you can select got it. What it does is going to allow you, for instance, to move this square on different parts of the screen. When you stop moving this square, those three options will show up. Say that you place it in a point of the screen, say that is the beginning, and then you want to lock that up. In the future, so the option that is gonna be zoom is that point where the square was left. But other than that, you can go back to this little icon that looks like a square, and it will allow you to move to different places, which is something you can do by holding your finger on the screen. This little option right here allow you to either maximize the space of that square, in which case it will take over the screen. It would allow you to see the letter bigger and expand the diameter that a square encompass. So when you want to get out, you will use the arrows that now are kind of moving towards each other, and that will go back to how it was. So these are the options that you can use to explore this magnification shortcut. So I'm gonna disable, and it will go back to how it was before. The square won't longer be there, and I can now go to the back, and I went to magnification. And now I'm going to font size and style. And here you can change things such as the font style. You have default fonts that you can pick from, and to pick, you just have to tap over that little circle on the left of the font name. And also you can use this option to download new fonts from the internet. Also, you can decide if you want the letter of your font to be bold. And when you do that, you can see a change on the screen. And decide how big you want the fonts to be. Right, the more you move towards the right, the bigger the letter is gonna be. The more left, the smaller the letter is gonna be. Keep in mind that some of these changes are not going to look as good or compatible with some applications. Therefore, you could be using an application and suddenly the letters could be stacking onto each other, and it's because the letter is too big and the interaction is not as smooth. So just keep that in mind. And to finalize here, we have a screen zoom. A screen zoom, what it does is that enhances or maximize what you see on the screen. And you have this part here that allow you to move either to the right, in which case you will be able to see how the screen will look like to the max of that zooming, or all the way to the left to see it smaller. Normally, I like to keep these ones in the middle point, but of course, this will depend on the user preference. But that is what a screen zoom is for. Those are some of the visibility enhancements that users with low vision can utilize to operate their device display much better. Interaction and dexterity features. Users can improve their device screen functionality with interaction and dexterity controls so that they can enjoy all their apps, text friends and family, and also make calls. You can connect other devices easy and adjust the screen sensitivity to taps and touches so you don't end opening other stuff that you didn't intend to open. That way, you will never select something accidentally. This could change depending on the brand of your device, so pay attention and kind of find the correlation between some of these functions so you can apply it to your personal experience. These are some of the features for low vision users that we recommend. You have voice access. Users can control their devices with just their voice. You can use commands to launch applications, select buttons, swipe on the screen, and type. Also, you can answer and end calls by choosing how you would like these actions to be performed with this interaction and dexterity menu. For instance, the device can read a caller's name out loud, and the user can press the volume key to answer that call. You can also use the option Ignore Repeated Touches. This option can be turned on, so initial taps are recognized and taps that are following those are disregarded. Time limit can be set for how long the extra screen taps are ignored, so you can decide how is this managed. And finally, we have here a system menu. What it does is that it displays a fixed menu with common controls and gestures such as navigation buttons, swiping, and on-screen touchpad, and more. You can also edit the menu to include the most frequently used buttons, interaction, and dexterity. And I'm going to show you some of the things we just went over. The option Assistant menu. So it's a toggle bar. I just tap in that toggle bar, and similar to what happened with TalkBack and other functions, it will ask you for full control of your phone or device. I'm using a smartphone, that's what it says, your phone. But the way it requested could change if you are using a tablet. Therefore, I will select in Allow. And when I activate my Assistant menu, you will find a button similar to the one we use for accessibility when we were trying to set it up as a background function. And here it is, right? It's this option right here. And it shows some of the gestures that are the most common from recent, right? Things that you have seen recent in your device. Home, if you want to go back to your home, you go back, a screen off, in which case it will take the screen to the lock mode, and all I need to do is unlock it. When I do that unlocking, I can go back to navigate So that's what a screen off is. The volume, whether you want your device to be muted, to do some form of vibration, or have a sound, you can tap in the X to get out of there. You have a screenshots. So this is when you want to take a screenshot of your screen. If you don't have this assistant menu, you will most likely have to use some buttons, physical buttons of your device to perform that screenshot. So that is a screenshot. And notice how you have arrows that go back and forth. And I will tap in the next one. And here I have much more options, including my notification panel, right? It will take me right there. I can see the cursor, and here is the cursor. When I have the cursor, it will show that on the screen. And that is a bit about how the assistant menu can help you navigate between functions. As I mentioned, you can decide what the assistant menus item are. And here you have a variety of options, anything from brightness, screen rotation. Depending of the voice assistants that you have on your device, you can decide if you want to enable one of those. You can use the magnifier option of your device settings menu, and you can change that by pressing in that little plus sign. Notice that some of them have a minus and some of them have a plus. The minus is to remove from the main selected items, and the plus sign is to add to the main selected items. So for instance, I don't think I'm going to use this pinch zoom too much. So I'm gonna move it. I'm not going to use this screen control that much either, neither the cursor. However, I will use the brightness and also the menu settings and also the magnifier. Reset. Everything will go back to how it was. That is how you essentially can add or remove items. So that's how you select these items. I'm going back to the main menu of interaction and dexterity. And here I have answering and ending calls. And you can decide if you want to read the caller's name out loud, if you want your calls to be answered automatically, or if you want your volume up button to be the one you use to answer a call, or if you want your power button to be the one you use to end up a call. To do that is a matter of just tapping over each of these functions and it will enable. Same if you want to disable. Same with your assistant menu. So that is kind of running in the background. It's kind of here. You can turn it off in the moment that you want. That has been accessibility settings. Thank you so much for listening.